the man holding your hand feels like home, but your mind swears he's a stranger, who do you believe? The first thing I notice when I wake up is the weight. Not heavy, just enough to anchor me. A hand wrapped around mine like it belongs there, like it's been there all night, maybe longer, and I follow the warmth up to a face I've never seen before, sharp lines softened by exhaustion, dark hair slightly out of place, eyes already on me like he's been waiting for this exact moment, and something in my chest stutters, not recognition, not exactly, but not nothing either, and I pull my hand back. Too fast, the foreline tugging slightly, my breath catching as the room tilts into focus, white walls, faint antiseptic smell, a monitor humming somewhere to my right, and none of it matters as much as the man sitting beside my bed like he belongs there more than I do. Easy, he says, voice low, steady, like he's done this before, like he knows how I break. You're okay, Ethan. And my name lands wrong in his mouth, too familiar, too certain, and I shake my head before I can stop myself. I don't know you, I say, the words coming out sharper than I expect, and something flickers across his face. Not surprise, not exactly pain either, something quieter, like he was bracing for it, like he already knew this would happen, and for a second neither of us moves, the air stretching thin between us until a nurse steps in, glances at the monitor, then at him, then at me, and says, almost casually, your husband's been here for 3 days straight, you're lucky. And the word husband hits. Harder than anything else, louder than the monitor, louder than my own heartbeat, because that's impossible. That has to be wrong. I would remember something like that, wouldn't I? I would remember him. But when I look back at him, he hasn't corrected her, hasn't laughed it off, hasn't done anything except watch me like I'm something fragile he's afraid to touch. And suddenly my skin feels too tight, my thoughts slipping through my fingers. So I grab the only thing that feels real, my phone on the bedside table, my hand shaking just enough to notice as I lift it, and it unlocks instantly, my face reflected back at me for half a second before the screen shifts. And there he is, again, not just in front of me, but everywhere. Photos stacked across months, maybe years, us at a beach, us in a kitchen, his arm around my shoulders like it's always been there. Messages open mid-thread, hearts, inside jokes, plans for dinners I don't remember eating, mornings I don't remember waking up to. And my throat goes dry because this isn't something you fake overnight. This isn't something you stumble into. This looks like a life, a whole life. And I scroll, faster now, like I'm chasing something I can't quite catch. And then I stop, because my chest feels tight in a way I can't explain. Not fear, not exactly, something closer to grief, and I don't understand why. I don't understand why looking at him feels like losing something I don't even remember having. And across the room, he finally moves, just a step closer, slow, careful, like approaching something wild, his hand lifting halfway, before stopping in the air, not touching, not yet, and I realize with a jolt that he's waiting for permission, like he's done this before too, like there are rules between us I've forgotten. And my pulse jumps, loud in my ears, because if he's a stranger, why does my body hesitate before pulling away again? Why does some quiet, stubborn part of me want to let him stay? The silence stretches longer than it should, the kind that hums under your skin and makes every small movement feel louder than it is, and I realize I am still holding my breath like if I inhale too sharply this entire moment will shatter. So I exhale slowly, carefully, watching him the whole time. Waiting for something to make sense, for something to click, but nothing does. Not his face, not the way he says my name, not the way his hand still hovers between us like he is asking a question he already knows the answer to. And I force myself to speak because if I do not, I am going to drown in this quiet. If you are my husband, I say, the words still foreign in my mouth, then why do I not remember you? And it comes out softer than I expect, less accusation, more confusion, more something dangerously close to fear, and for a second I think he will step closer, that he will try to explain, but instead he lowers his hand, just slightly, like pulling back from a line he refuses to cross, and that restraint hits me harder than anything else, because people who lie usually push, they insist, they fill the space with noise, but he does not. He just nods once, slow, like he has practiced this answer. You had a medical episode, he says. Voice steady, but not cold. The doctors said your memory might come back in pieces. Or not at all. And there is something in the way he says it, not rehearsed exactly, but lived in, like he has been carrying this sentence around for days, maybe longer, waiting for the moment he would have to say it to me. And I swallow, my throat dry, because that should be enough. That should explain everything. Except it does not explain the way my chest tightens when he looks at me. It does not explain the strange pull in my ribs like something inside me is leaning toward him without permission. And I hate that. I hate that my body is betraying me when my mind is screaming to keep distance. So I look back down at my phone like it might anchor me, scrolling again, slower this time, forcing myself to see, really see. And there are details everywhere, not just big moments but small ones. Grocery list with both our names, reminders set for his meetings, notes that say things like do not forget his favorite coffee order, black with a splash of oat milk, and I freeze because that is exactly how I drink it. I do not even have to think about it. My mouth almost forming the taste before I realize it, and my fingers tighten around the phone, because this is not just some surface level lie. This is deep. This is built into the rhythm of a life. And my eyes flick up to him again, searching, trying to find the crack, the inconsistency, the thing that proves this is all wrong. But he is just standing there, shoulders squared but not tense, watching me like he is giving me space to come to my own conclusion. And that patience is worse than any pressure. It makes me feel like I am the one behind, like I am the one missing something obvious. And suddenly the room feels too small, the air too thick, so I swing my legs over the side of the bed, ignoring the faint pull in my arm, needing to move, needing something to ground me. And he steps forward immediately, instinctive, then stops himself just as fast, like there is a rule he will not break. And that hesitation burns into me, because it means he knows exactly where the line is, exactly how close he is allowed to get, and I do not remember setting that boundary, but my body reacts anyway, a flicker of something like relief when he does not touch me. And I hate that too. The contradiction of it. The way I want distance and closeness at the same time. And I push to my feet, steady enough, the floor cool under my bare feet, and I look at him fully now, forcing myself to hold his gaze. What is your name? I ask, even though I already know, even though I saw it 100 times on my screen, because I need to hear it from him, need to see how it feels when it comes from his mouth. And there is the smallest pause, just a fraction of a second, like the question lands somewhere deeper than it should, before he answers, Adrian. He says, softer this time, like the name carries weight between us, like it has been spoken in quieter places than this, and something in my chest shifts, not recognition, not memory, just a subtle, undeniable pull, like hearing a song you cannot place, but somehow know the melody to. And I grip the edge of the bed to steady myself. Because if I do not remember him, if he really is a stranger, then why does his name feel like it is already written somewhere inside me? The name lingers in the air longer than it should, Adrian, and I feel it settle somewhere just beneath my ribs like it belongs there even if I do not understand why. And I hate how that feels, how something so simple can knock my balance off center, so I look away first, breaking whatever invisible thread had formed between us, and I focus back on the phone in my hand like it is the only thing tethering me to something real, something objective, except the more I scroll, the less objective it feels, because it is not just pictures anymore. It is patterns, it is habits, it is a version of me that exists so clearly in this device, but nowhere in my head. And my thumb pauses over a message thread pinned at the top, his name, Adrian, followed by a small heart. And my stomach twists because that is not something you do casually, not something you add without meaning. And I tap it before I can talk myself out of it. The conversation opening. Instantly, long, dense, filled with days and nights of words that feel too intimate to belong to a stranger. Good morning texts, reminders to eat, arguments that end in apologies, inside jokes I do not understand, but somehow feel like I should. And I scroll faster. Like if I go far enough I will hit the beginning, the moment this all started, but instead I land on something that makes my breath hitch, a voice message, my name attached to it, sent from me, and I hesitate, my finger hovering just above the screen, because this feels different, heavier, like opening it will change something I cannot undo. And across the room I can feel him watching me, not moving, not interrupting, just there, steady and quiet, and that stillness somehow makes it harder, not easier, because it feels like he is trusting me to find my way through this on my own, and I am not sure I want that kind of responsibility. Not when everything inside me feels like it is slipping, but I press play anyway, because I need to know, I need something that makes sense, and my own voice fills the space, softer than I remember it, a little unsteady, like I was trying to stay calm and failing just enough to make it real. Hey. The recording starts, and my chest tightens immediately, because it sounds like me, but not like me. Not like the version of me I recognize. If you are listening to this, then something went wrong. And my fingers curl tighter around the phone, my pulse picking up as the words settle in. Something went wrong, and I glance up without meaning to, my eyes catching his for just a second before dropping back to the screen, like I am afraid he will see too much in. My reaction: I do not know when you are going to hear this. My voice continues, quieter now, but I need you to trust me, even if it does not make sense, and I shake my head slightly, instinctively, because nothing about this makes sense, not the message, not the situation, not the way my heart is beating like it recognizes something my brain refuses to accept. His name is Adrian. The recording says, and my breath stutters again, the sound of his name in my own voice hitting differently. Heavier. More certain. And I know right now he probably feels like a stranger, but he is not. And I let out a slow, shaky breath, my eyes lifting again, drawn to him like something magnetic, and he has not moved, not even an inch. But there is something in his expression now, something tight around the edges, like he is holding himself together by force, like hearing this is not easy for him either. And that realization lands strangely, because if this is all a lie, if he is manipulating me, why would he look like that? Why would he stand there and let me piece this together instead of controlling the narrative? And my thoughts tangle over each other as the message continues. You chose him. My voice says, clear this time. No hesitation. Not once, not by accident. You chose him over and over again. And something inside me shifts, something small but undeniable, like a door cracking open just enough to let a sliver of light through. And I swallow hard, my throat tight, because I do not remember choosing him. I do not remember any of this, but the certainty in my own voice is hard to ignore, harder than anything else I have seen so far, and I press the phone closer to my ear, needing to hear every word, needing to understand what version of me recorded this and why. So even if you are scared, the message continues, softer now, almost pleading. Even if you think you should run, do not make a decision yet. And I freeze, my breath catching again, because that hits too close, too accurate. Like whoever recorded this knew exactly how I would react, knew I would want to leave, knew I would want distance, and the realization makes my chest ache in a way I cannot explain, because it means this is not random, this is not chaos, this is something planned, something intentional, and my eyes drift back to him one more time, slower this time, less defensive, more searching, and for the first time since I woke up, the thought slips in before I can stop it, quiet but persistent. What if he is telling the truth? The message ends, but the silence it leaves behind feels louder than anything that came before it. Like the room itself is waiting to see what I do next. And I do not move. I just stand there with my phone pressed against my ear long after the audio has stopped, my own voice still echoing in my head. You chose him, over and over again, and I do not know what to do with that, because it sounds certain. It sounds like a decision made with clarity, not confusion, not fear, and that version of me feels like a stranger too, someone braver, someone who knew exactly what he wanted. And I am not sure I trust him any more than I trust the man standing across from me. So I lower the phone slowly, my hand unsteady in a way I cannot quite hide. And for a moment I consider ignoring everything I just heard, walking out of this room, pretending none of this exists, because that would be easier. It would be simpler to believe that this is all some elaborate mistake. But the problem is it does not feel like a mistake. It feels too precise, too detailed, like something carefully built and now placed back in front of me piece by piece. And I hate how much that thought lingers, how it refuses to let me settle into denial. So instead I do the only thing I can think of. I look at him again. Really look this time. Not just at his face, but at the way he holds himself, the distance he keeps, the way his hands stay at his sides like he is afraid to reach for me without permission. And I realize something that makes my chest tighten in a different way. He is not trying to convince me. He is waiting for me. And that is not what I expected, not what I prepared for, because if he were lying, if this were some kind of manipulation, would he not push harder? Would he not fill the silence with explanations, with urgency, with reasons I should believe him? But he does not. He just stands there, steady and quiet, like he has already said everything that matters and the rest is up to me. And that realization unsettles me more than anything else so far, because it shifts something fundamental in the way I see him, from threat to something else I cannot quite name. And I do not like that shift. I do not like how quickly it happens, so I clear my throat, forcing my voice to stay level even though it feels like it is balancing on something fragile. Why would I record something like that? I ask, the question coming out softer than I intend, more honest than defensive, and his eyes flicker slightly, just for a second, like he was not expecting that particular angle. But he answers anyway, without hesitation. Because you knew this might happen, he says, and there is no drama in his tone, no exaggeration, just a simple statement that lands heavier than it should, and I frown, trying to piece that together, because that implies planning, intention, that implies I was aware something could go wrong. And that thought sends a quiet ripple of unease through me, because what exactly went wrong? What exactly did I lose? And why does it feel like the answer is standing right in front of me? So I take a step closer without fully realizing it, my body moving before my mind can catch up, and he does not step back, does not close the distance either. He just holds his ground, giving me exactly as much space as I seem to need. And I stop a few feet away, close enough now to notice the small details, the faint shadows under his eyes, the way his jaw tightens slightly like he is holding something back. And I wonder how long he has been like this, how many hours he has spent sitting in that chair, waiting for me to wake up, waiting for me to look at him like a stranger, and the thought lands heavier than I expect, settling somewhere uncomfortable in my chest. So I look down again, back at the phone still in my hand, at the message thread, at the life I apparently built, and then lost, and I realize something that shifts the ground beneath me just a little more. I am not just trying to figure out who he is. I am trying to figure out who I was, and somehow those two things are tangled together in a way I cannot separate. So I take a slow breath, steadying myself, and when I look back up at him this time, there is less panic in my chest, less instinct to pull away, replaced instead by something quieter, more dangerous, curiosity. If I chose you, I say slowly, the words, careful, measured, then I need to understand why. And for the first time since I woke up, something in his expression shifts, not relief, not exactly, but something close, like a door opening just a fraction, like this is the first step in a direction he has been waiting for. And the way that feels, the way that matters, unsettles me more than anything else so far, because it means this is not over. This is just beginning. The question hangs between us longer than I expect, not heavy, not sharp, just present, like something that has been waiting quietly for the right moment to exist. And I watch him carefully, every small shift in his expression, the way his eyes soften just a fraction, the way his shoulders lower like he has been carrying something invisible for too long. And I realize he is choosing his words, not because he is unsure, but because he is careful, like what he says next matters in a way I cannot yet understand. And that thought makes my pulse pick up again, slow but steady, like a warning I cannot quite interpret. You want the short answer, he says finally, his voice even. But there is something underneath it, something warmer, something that almost sounds like memory, or the real one. And I blink, caught off guard by the question because I am not sure there is a difference, not from where I am standing, not when everything feels equally unreal. So I let out a small breath I did not realize I was holding and shake my head slightly. I do not think I can handle the short version, I admit, because that feels too easy, too simple for something this complicated. And his mouth presses into something that might be the beginning of a smile, not quite there, not fully formed, but enough to shift something in the air between us, enough to make it feel less like a confrontation and more like a conversation. And that change unsettles me more than I want to admit, because it feels natural in a way it should not. Then we start with something small, he says, and I nod before I can stop myself, because small feels manageable, small feels safe. And right now I need something that does not feel like it is going to pull the ground out from under me. So I brace myself, my fingers tightening slightly around the edge of the bed as I wait. And he takes a slow step closer, just one, stopping well before the space between us disappears, like he knows exactly how far he is allowed to go. Like this distance is something we have measured before, and I hate that I cannot remember setting that boundary. Hate that he seems to know it better than I do. You hate mornings, he says, and I almost laugh because that is not what I expected, not even close. But then he continues, calm and steady. You set 3 alarms and ignore all of them. And then you complain about being late while still sitting on the edge of the bed like the day offended you personally. And the words hit me in a strange way, light but precise, like a dart landing exactly where it is meant to, and I frown slightly because that does sound like me. It feels like me, even if I do not remember him being there to see it. You drink your coffee black with a little oat milk, he adds, and my stomach tightens again because I already saw that. I already felt that recognition earlier, and hearing it out loud only makes it stronger, more real. You leave notes for yourself on your phone when you are stressed, little reminders so you do not spiral. And my grip on the bed shifts, my mind flashing back to the message I just heard, the one I recorded. And suddenly that does not feel random anymore. It feels like a pattern, like something I have done before, and I swallow, my throat dry, because these are not grand gestures, not dramatic declarations. They are small, quiet details, the kind you only notice if you are there, if you are paying attention. And I look at him again, really look, searching for the lie, the inconsistency, the thing that proves this is rehearsed. But there is nothing, just that same steady presence, that same careful distance, and something in my chest shifts again, deeper this time, heavier, because this is harder to dismiss, harder to explain away. Anyone could figure that out. I say anyway, because I need something to push against, something to keep me grounded, and his gaze does not waver, not even a flicker. Maybe, he says, simply, and then, softer, like the words matter more than anything else he has said so far. But not everyone would stay long enough to learn it. And that lands differently, not sharp, not accusatory, just honest, and I feel it settle somewhere deep in my chest, uncomfortable and warm at the same time, because it implies time, effort, presence, things that cannot be faked overnight, things that take choice, repeated choice, and I do not remember making those choices, but something in me reacts to the idea of them anyway, like an echo I cannot quite place, and I exhale slowly, my shoulders dropping just a fraction as the tension shifts into something quieter, something less like panic and more like a question I am not sure how to answer yet. And for the first time since I woke up, the thought does not feel as terrifying as it did before. It feels uncertain, yes, but also possible, and that possibility is more dangerous than anything else because it means I might not just be uncovering a lie. I might be rediscovering something real. The room feels different now, not smaller, not larger, just altered in a way I cannot quite name, like the edges of everything have softened but the center has sharpened, and I realize I am still standing there holding on to his words, turning them over in my head. Not everyone would stay long enough to learn it, and I do not know why that lands so hard, why it sits so heavily in my chest, because it should not matter, not when I cannot even remember him, not when every instinct in me is still telling me to keep my distance, and yet I do not move away, I do not step back, I just stand there, caught somewhere between doubt and something dangerously close to trust, and I hate that I cannot tell the difference. So I force my attention elsewhere, down to the phone still in my hand, to the thread still open, to the version of me that exists in messages I do not remember writing, and I scroll again, slower this time, more deliberate, like I am trying to learn a language I used to speak fluently, and then I stop, because something catches my eye, a calendar entry, simple, nothing dramatic, just a date with a title that reads, "Do not cancel this one." And I frown slightly, tapping it open, and the details expand in front of me. Location saved, time set, notes attached, and my breath slows just a little as I read the line underneath. If you are scared, go anyway. He is worth it. And my chest tightens again, but differently this time. Not panic, not confusion, something quieter, something that feels like recognition without memory, and I do not understand how that is possible. How something can feel familiar without context. How a sentence written by me can reach me now like a message from someone else entirely. And I glance up at him again without meaning to, my eyes searching his face like it might fill in the missing pieces, but he is still there. still watching, still waiting. And I realize he has not interrupted me once. Not while I listened to the recording. Not while I scrolled through everything. Not even now. And that patience feels intentional. Like he knows pushing would only make me pull away. Like he has learned that lesson the hard way. And the thought lands heavier than I expect. Because it suggests history, not just of us, but of me. Of how I react, how I run, how I need space even when I do not ask for it. And suddenly I am. Not just looking at him anymore. I am looking at the shape of a relationship I cannot remember, but somehow recognize in fragments, in patterns, in the way he moves around me like he already knows where the cracks are. And I swallow. My throat dry again as the realization settles in. Because this is not just about him convincing me. This is about me confronting the version of myself that made these choices, that left these breadcrumbs behind like I knew I would need them. And that thought makes my pulse pick up again, slow but insistent. So I take a step back, not far, just enough to create space to think, to breathe, to keep myself from getting pulled too far into something I cannot fully see yet. And he does not follow, does not close the gap, just stays where he is, respecting that invisible line without question. And I notice that again. The way he adapts to me without being told, the way he reads. The shift in my body before I even understand it myself. And I hate how much that matters, how much it says without words. So I shake my head slightly, trying to clear the noise, trying to anchor myself in something solid. If I planned for this, I say slowly, my voice quieter now, less defensive, more uncertain, then I must have known something was going to happen. And the words feel heavier the moment they leave my mouth. Because saying them out loud makes it real, makes the situation more than just confusion. It makes it intentional, and his expression shifts again, just slightly, something tightening in his jaw before he answers. You knew there was a risk, he says, and his voice is still steady, still calm. But there is something underneath it now, something more guarded, like we are getting closer to a part of the story he is not sure I am ready to hear. And that realization sends a quiet chill through me. Not fear exactly, but awareness, like I am standing at the edge of something deeper than I expected, something that will change the way I see all of this. And for a moment I hesitate, my instinct pulling me in two different directions at once, one telling me to stop, to stay in this safer space of partial understanding, and the other pushing me forward, demanding answers, demanding truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. And I do not know which one to listen to. But I know I cannot stay here forever, stuck between not knowing and not wanting to know. So I take a slow breath, steadying myself, and when I look at him this time, there is less distance in my gaze, less resistance, replaced by something that feels dangerously like resolve. What kind of risk? I ask, and the question lands between us like a line drawn in the sand, one that neither of us can ignore now. One that will force whatever comes next into the open. Whether I am ready for it or not, the question lands heavier than I expect. And for the first time since I woke up, he does not answer right away, not immediately, not with that same quiet certainty he has carried through everything else. And that pause stretches, subtle but undeniable, like something fragile has just been placed between us, and neither of us is sure how to touch it without breaking it. And I feel it in the way the air shifts. In the way my own breath slows without permission, waiting, bracing, because whatever comes next is going to matter more than anything he has said so far, and I am not sure I am ready for that. But I asked, and now there is no pulling back, no pretending I did not want to know, and finally he exhales, slow and controlled, like he is choosing exactly how much to give me. You were warned, he says, and the words are simple, almost too simple for how much weight they carry, and I frown slightly. My mind trying to catch up. Warned about what? I press, because that is not enough, not even close, and his gaze shifts for just a second, not away from me, but inward, like he is looking at something I cannot see, something that belongs to a version of us I no longer have access to. And when he speaks again, his voice is still steady, but there is something tighter in it. Now, something more careful, about pushing yourself too far, he says, and my stomach drops just a little, because that sounds familiar in a way I cannot explain, like hearing an echo without remembering the original sound. And I shake my head instinctively. That does not explain this, I say, gesturing vaguely between us, between the phone in my hand, between the life I cannot remember, and he nods once. Like he expected that reaction, like he has already walked through this conversation in his head 100 times. It does not, he agrees, and there is no defensiveness in it. No attempt to twist the answer into something easier, just honesty, and that honesty is starting to feel like its own kind of pressure, because it leaves me with nowhere to hide, nowhere to push the blame, nowhere to dismiss this as something simple. And I swallow, my throat dry again, because I can feel it now, the shape of something bigger just beneath the surface, something I am circling without fully seeing, and it makes my chest tighten in a way I cannot ignore. So I take another step back, not out of fear this time, but out of instinct, like I need space to absorb what he is saying, to keep my thoughts from tangling too tightly. And he lets me, of course he does, he always does, and that consistency is starting to feel less like coincidence and more like proof of something I am not ready to name yet. And I run a hand through my hair, the motion automatic, grounding, even if I do not remember why it helps. So I knew something could go wrong. I say slowly, piecing it together out loud, and I still chose to, continue anyway. And the question hangs at the end of the sentence, because I do not know how to finish it, do not know what word fits here, and his eyes soften just slightly, like he recognizes that gap, like he knows exactly what I am trying to reach for. You chose to stay, he says, and something in the way he says it makes my chest tighten again, sharper this time, because that word carries weight, more than it should, more than I expect. Stay, not fall, not try, not consider, stay, like there was a moment when leaving was an option, like there was a decision that mattered, and I feel it then, not a memory, not a clear image, just a flicker of something deeper, a sense of standing at a crossroads I cannot see, of choosing something that scared me and doing it anyway. And it hits me harder than anything else so far, because it means this was not accidental. This was not something that just happened to me. This was something I actively stepped into, something I accepted knowing there was a risk, and my breath catches slightly, my fingers tightening at my sides as the realization settles in. Because if that is true, if I knew, if I chose this anyway, then whatever exists between us is not just real. It is something I believed in strongly enough to risk losing everything else. And that thought is too big, too overwhelming to process all at once. So I focus on him again, on the one constant in all of this, the one thing I can actually see. And for a moment, I just look at him, really look, taking in the details I might have missed before, the faint tension in his posture, the way his gaze never fully leaves mine, even when the conversation shifts, like he is tracking me, not controlling, just present. And I realize something that makes my chest tighten in a completely different way. He is not afraid of me not remembering him. He is afraid of what I might decide once I do. And that realization lands quietly but firmly, changing the shape of everything again, because it means this is not just about the past. It is about the choice in front of me now, the one I do not even fully understand yet. And I inhale slowly, steadying myself, because I can feel it building, the weight of it, the inevitability of it, like a question that is going to demand an answer whether I am ready or not. And when I speak again, my voice is quieter, but there is something else in it now, something more grounded, more deliberate. Then tell me what I stayed for, I say, and the moment the words leave my mouth, I know there is no going back to not knowing, no returning to the safer confusion I started with, because whatever he says next is going to change everything. And part of me is already bracing for it, while another part, quieter but stronger, is already leaning forward to listen. The words I just said do not disappear after I speak them. They settle, heavy and unavoidable, and I can feel the shift immediately, not just in him, but in myself, like something is locked into place, like I have crossed a line I cannot uncross. And for the first time since I woke up, I am not just reacting anymore. I am asking, I am choosing to step forward instead of back. And that realization is both grounding and terrifying at the same time, because it means whatever comes next is something I am actively walking into, not something happening to me. And he sees it. I can tell he does, in the way his expression changes, not dramatically, not all at once, but enough to make it clear that this matters, that this question is not just another piece of confusion to sort through. It is something deeper, something closer to the center of everything. And he exhales slowly, like he has been holding that breath for longer than I realized, like this moment has been building for days, maybe longer. And when he speaks, his voice is quieter than before, not weaker, just more deliberate, more careful. You stayed because leaving hurt more, he says, and the simplicity of it catches me off guard, because I expected something bigger, something more complicated, but instead it lands clean, almost gentle, and for a second I do not understand it. Not fully, not in the way I need to. So I frown slightly, my mind trying to grasp it, to turn it into something concrete. That does not make sense, I admit, because it does not without context, not without the missing pieces I still cannot see. And he nods, like he expected that too, like none of this is surprising anymore. It would not, he agrees, and there is no frustration in it, no impatience, just acceptance. And that acceptance is starting to feel like its own kind of weight, because it means he has already gone through all of this, already faced these questions, already lived through the version of me that could understand it. And now he is standing here with the version that cannot, and still choosing to stay. And that thought lands harder than I expect, settling somewhere deep in my chest, because it is not just about what I stayed for anymore. It is about what he is still staying for now. And I look at him differently then, not just as the answer to a question, but as someone making a choice in real time. And that changes the shape of everything again. So I take a slow breath, steadying myself, because I can feel the conversation shifting, moving away from simple facts and into something more fragile, something that cannot be explained in clean sentences, and I am not sure I am ready for that. But I also know I cannot stop now, not when I have already come this far, not when I have already asked the question that matters. So I press forward, even though my voice feels quieter now, less certain. What happened? I ask, and the words feel heavier the moment they leave my mouth, because this is not just curiosity anymore. This is something closer to truth. And he pauses again, longer this time, not avoiding, just choosing, deciding how much to give me, how much I can handle, and I see it in the way his jaw tightens slightly, the way his gaze shifts for just a second before returning to me, like he is checking something inside himself, measuring it. And when he finally speaks, his voice carries something new, something that was not there before, something that feels like the edge of a memory I cannot access. You were tired, he says, and the words are soft, almost too soft, but they hit harder than anything else he has said so far, because they feel personal in a way I cannot explain, like they are not just describing a moment, but a pattern, a state I lived in for longer than I should have. And I blink, caught off guard by how simple that sounds, how ordinary it seems compared to everything else. Tired of what? I ask, because that cannot be enough. It cannot explain all of this, all of the preparation, all of the risk, all of the choices. And he looks at me then, really looks, like he is deciding whether to say it, whether to give me the piece that might change everything. And when he answers, his voice is still calm, still steady, but there is something underneath it now, something that feels dangerously close to breaking, of pretending you did not need anyone, he says, and the words land in a way nothing else has, not like information, not like explanation, but like recognition, like something inside me flinches even though I do not remember why, and I feel it, sharp and sudden, a pull in my chest that makes it hard to breathe for just a second. Because that feels true, not because I remember it, but because I recognize the shape of it, the weight of it, like a habit I have not unlearned even without the memory to support it. And I look away instinctively, my gaze dropping to the floor as I try to steady myself, because that is too close, too accurate, too personal for something that is supposed to be a stranger's explanation, and I do not know what to do with that, do not know how to reconcile the version of me I think I am with the version he is describing. So I shake my head slightly, more to clear the feeling than to deny the words. And when I look back up at him, something has shifted again, not just in him, but in me, because for the first time, the distance between us does not feel like safety. It feels like something I am not sure I want to keep anymore. And that realization settles quietly but firmly, changing the direction of everything that comes next. The words settle into me in a way I cannot push away, not loud, not overwhelming, just steady, like something quietly taking root. And I stand there for a moment longer than I should, staring at him while trying to untangle the feeling in my chest, because it is not just discomfort anymore. It is something deeper, something that feels like recognition without memory, like my body is reacting to a truth my mind cannot yet reach. And I hate how much that matters, how much it shifts everything without giving me anything solid to hold on to. So I look away again, not out of fear this time, but because I need a second to think, to breathe, to find something that still feels like mine. And my gaze lands back on the phone in my hand, still open, still filled with a version of my life I cannot access. And for a moment, I just stare at it, at the messages, at the photos, at the proof of something I am still trying to understand. And then I notice something I missed before, a pinned note at the top of the screen, separate from everything else, not part of a conversation, just a single file saved with a title that makes my stomach tighten instantly. If you are starting over, and I hesitate, my thumb hovering just above it, because that feels different, heavier, like opening it will cross another line I cannot uncross, and I do not know how many of those I can handle right now, but I also know I am already past the point of stopping, already too far into this to turn back without answers. So I tap it before I can think too hard, and the screen shifts, the text appearing slowly as if it has been waiting for me, and my breath catches as I begin to read. If you are reading this, it means something went wrong again, and the word again hits me harder than anything else so far, because it suggests this is not the first time that whatever I am experiencing right now has happened before, that I have already stood in this exact place, asking these exact questions, and the thought makes my chest tighten in a way I cannot ignore, because it means this is not just a single moment of confusion. It is a pattern, something repeating, something I tried to prepare for more than once, and I feel it then, a flicker of something just out of reach, like a memory brushing against the edge of my awareness without fully forming, and I grip the phone tighter, my pulse picking up as I keep reading. You are going to want to run. The note continues, and I let out a quiet breath because that is too accurate, too precise, like the version of me who wrote this knew exactly how I would feel, knew exactly what I would want to do. And that realization makes everything feel more real, more intentional, and more dangerous all at once. But if you do, you will regret it, and I pause there, my eyes lifting slowly, almost against my will, until they land on him. Again, still standing there, still watching, still waiting. And I wonder how many times he has been here, how many times he has watched me read something like this, how many times he has stood in that exact spot while I tried to piece together a life I keep losing. And the thought lands heavy, settling into something that feels dangerously close to guilt, even though I do not fully understand why, and I swallow, forcing my gaze back to the screen, because I am not ready to face that yet, not ready to face him with that kind of weight in my chest. He will not force you. The note continues, and I feel my breath slow slightly, as the words sink in, because that is true. I have already seen that, already felt that in the way he holds himself, in the way he keeps his distance. He will give you space, even when it hurts him. And my fingers tighten again, because that is also true. I can see it now, the tension in his posture, the restraint in every movement, the way he watches me like he is holding himself back from reaching out. And the realization hits deeper this time, because it connects everything, the past I cannot remember with the present I am living through, and suddenly it does not feel like coincidence anymore. It feels like proof, like something consistent and real. And I continue reading, my voice silent, but my thoughts louder than ever. But do not mistake that for indifference. And something in my chest shifts again, sharper now, because that feels important, feels like a warning I do not fully understand yet. He loves you in a way that does not leave. And I stop there, the words blurring slightly as I stare at them, because that is too much, too direct, too certain, and I do not know what to do with that. Do not know how to reconcile that with the fact that I am standing here looking at him like he is a stranger, like I have no connection to him at all, and yet my chest feels tight in a way that does not match that reality. And I realize then, slowly, reluctantly, that this is no longer just about what I remember or do not remember. It is about what I feel right now, in this moment, and whether I am willing to trust that feeling even without the memory to support it. And that thought terrifies me more than anything else so far, because it means the decision in front of me is not just about the past. It is about the present, about the choice I make now, standing here, looking at him, with nothing but fragments and instinct to guide me. And I lift my head again, slower this time, my eyes meeting his without the same urgency as before, without the same instinct to pull away. And for a moment we just stand there, The space between us unchanged, but somehow different, because I am no longer just trying to understand him. I am trying to decide what to do with him. And that realization settles quietly but firmly, changing everything in a way I cannot undo. The words on the screen do not fade when I look away. They stay, etched somewhere deeper than the phone in my hand. And I can feel them sitting in my chest, quiet but heavy, like something that is not asking for attention but refuses to be ignored. And for a moment, I do not move. I just stand there trying to understand how something written by me can feel so foreign and so certain at the same time. How it can know me better than I seem to know myself right now. And the longer I think about it, the clearer one thing becomes. This is not just a message. This is a warning, not about him, not about the situation, but about me, about what I am likely to do next. And that realization lands slowly but firmly, because it means the biggest risk here is not him. It is the version of me that runs, the version that pretends not to need anything. Until it is too late, and I inhale slowly, trying to steady the shift in my thoughts, because this is different now. This is no longer about figuring out if he is telling the truth. It is about deciding what I am going to do with it, and that feels heavier than anything else so far. So I lower the phone, my hand relaxing just slightly as I let it hang at my side. And when I look back at him this time, there is something different in my gaze, something quieter, less defensive, and I can see that. He notices it immediately, not in a dramatic way, just in the subtle way his posture shifts, the tension in his shoulders easing by a fraction, like he has been waiting for this exact change without expecting it. And the thought makes something in my chest tighten again, not in panic this time, but in something softer, something I am not ready to name yet. So I focus on something else, something practical, something I can hold on to. You said I stayed. I say slowly, my voice steadier than I expect, even knowing there was a risk. And he nods once, not interrupting, not filling the space, just letting me continue. And I do, because I need to say this out loud, need to hear it in my own voice. So that means there was a point where I could have left. I add, and the words feel heavier the moment they leave my mouth, because they carry implication. They suggest choice, and choice is harder to process than confusion. And his expression shifts again, just slightly, like I have touched something important, something real. There was, he says, and his voice is still calm, still even, but there is something underneath it now, something that feels like memory, like he is not just answering me, he is remembering it. And I feel that too, not the memory itself, but the weight of it, the shape of a moment that mattered. And my pulse picks up slightly as I take that in, because that means whatever this is, whatever we are, it was not inevitable, it was chosen, and that makes it more real, not less. So I take a step closer before I can second guess it. Not all the way, not enough to close the distance completely, but enough to feel the shift, enough to acknowledge it. And he does not move, does not step back, just watches me with that same steady focus, like he is letting me set the pace, like this is something we have done before, and the familiarity of that thought catches me off guard. But I do not pull away from it this time. I let it sit, let it exist without immediately rejecting it. And that feels like progress, even if I do not fully understand it yet. Then why did I almost leave? I ask, because that is the part that matters now, not just that I stayed, but that there was a moment when I did not want to, and his gaze softens again, not in pity, not in sadness, just in understanding, like he has already walked through this question and knows where it leads. Because you were scared, he says, and the words land simply, but they carry weight, the kind that does not need explanation to be felt. And I nod slightly, because that makes sense, it fits with everything else, the warnings, the notes, the preparation, but it is not enough, not by itself. So I push further, even though my voice feels quieter now, more careful, scared of what? I ask, and this time when he pauses, it is different, longer, more deliberate, like he is standing at the edge of something he is not sure he should show me yet. And I can feel it, the shift in the air, the sense that whatever comes next is going to matter in a way I am not fully ready for. But I do not look away. I hold his gaze, steady and unflinching, because I need to know. I need to understand the version of me that made these choices, that left these messages behind. And finally he exhales, slow and controlled, like he is letting something go. You were scared, he says, his voice quieter now, almost careful, that if you let yourself need me, You would not be able to walk away if you had to. And the words hit deeper than anything else so far. Not loud, not sharp, just precise, like they land exactly where they are meant to, and I feel it, the impact of it, the truth of it, even without the memory to back it up, and for a second. Everything else fades, the room, the phone, the confusion, all of it narrowing down to that one idea, that fear, and I realize then, slowly, quietly, that whatever happened between us, whatever I chose, it was not easy, it was not simple, it was something that required me to face that fear and step forward anyway, and that realization settles into me in a way I cannot ignore, changing the shape of everything once again. Because it means this is not just a story I am uncovering, it is a decision. I am standing in the middle of all over again. The words do not just land, they stay, settling into me in a way that feels uncomfortably permanent, like something I cannot unhear or undo. And I stand there longer than I should, staring at him while trying to process what that means, because it is not just about fear anymore. It is about choice, about the version of me that stood in front of him knowing exactly what he risked and still decided to stay. And that realization feels heavier than anything else so far, not because I remember it, but because I believe it, and that is the part that unsettles me the most, the way something can feel true without proof, the way my chest tightens not in rejection but in recognition, and I inhale slowly, trying to steady myself, because I can feel the shift happening, not sudden, not overwhelming, just quiet and undeniable, like the ground beneath me is changing shape 1 inch at a time, and I am no longer standing in the same place I was when I woke up. So I let the silence stretch for a moment, not because I do not have anything to say, but because I need to understand what I am feeling before I put it into words. And he does not interrupt. Of course he does not. He never does. He just stands there, watching, waiting, like he has learned that this is the only way through this. And that patience, that consistency, it does something to me, something I cannot ignore anymore, because it feels intentional, not passive, like he is choosing this, choosing me, even now, even when I do not remember him. And that thought lands quietly but firmly, shifting something deeper inside me. So I take another step forward before I can second guess it, closing the distance just a little more, enough to feel it, enough to acknowledge that I am not standing as far away as I was before, and I see it in his eyes immediately. The way something there softens, not relief exactly, not yet, but something close, something that feels like hope he is trying not to hold onto too tightly. And that realization makes my chest tighten again, not in panic this time, but in something that feels dangerously close to responsibility. Because if he is hoping, then my next choice matters more than I thought. And I am not sure I am ready for that. But I also know I cannot pretend it does not exist, so I look at him fully, not just searching, not just questioning, but really looking, taking in the way he stands, the way he breathes, the way he seems to hold himself back from reaching for me even now. And I realize something that shifts everything again. He is not just afraid of losing me. He is afraid of pushing me away. And that fear, that restraint, it says more than any explanation could. It tells me this is not one-sided. This is not something I imagined alone. This is something we built together, something that required both of us to meet in the middle. And that thought lands deeper than anything else so far, because it means I was not just reacting, I was participating, I was choosing him in a way that mattered. And I swallow, my throat tight as I try to find the words for what I am feeling, because it is not simple, not clean. It is a mix of uncertainty and something softer, something that feels like it is growing quietly beneath the surface, and I do not know what to call it yet, but I know I cannot ignore it anymore. If I was that scared, I say slowly, my voice quieter now, more honest than I intended, then it must have been serious. And the words feel heavier the moment they leave my mouth, because they acknowledge something I have been avoiding, something I did not want to admit. And he nods, just once, not pushing, not adding anything more than necessary. But there is something in his expression now, something steadier, like we are finally standing on the same ground, even if I do not fully understand it yet. And that realization settles into me in a way that feels both grounding and unsettling at the same time. Because it means I am not as lost as I thought. I am just missing pieces, and those pieces are starting to form a shape I cannot ignore. So I take a slow breath, steadying myself again. because I can feel it building. The next question, the next step, the one that will push this even further. And I know I cannot stop now. Not when I have already come this far. Not when I am already starting to see the outline of something real, something that matters. So I hold his gaze, steady this time, not flinching, not looking away, because I need to know, not just what I felt, not just what I chose, but what it led to. And when I speak again, my voice is still quiet. But there is something new in it now, something more certain, more grounded. So what changed? I ask, and the question hangs between us like a turning point, like something that will shift everything once again. And for the first time, I am not just afraid of the answer. I am ready for it. The question does not just shift the moment. It changes the weight of everything that came before it. And I see it in the way his breath stills for just a fraction of a second, the way his gaze holds mine a little tighter, like this is the point where everything stops being careful and starts becoming real. And I feel it too, that quiet tension settling between us, not sharp, not overwhelming, just present, like we have both stepped into something that cannot be undone. And for a moment neither of us speaks, not because there is nothing to say, but because whatever comes next is going to matter in a way neither of us can soften. And I brace myself without realizing it, my fingers curling slightly at my sides as I wait. And when he finally exhales, it is slower than before, more deliberate, like he is choosing not just the words but the truth behind them. You did, he says, and for a second I do not understand, not fully, because the answer feels incomplete, like a piece missing from a larger picture, and I frown slightly, my mind trying to catch up. I changed. I repeat, quieter now, because that feels wrong, not entirely wrong, but not enough. And he nods once, his expression steady but softer than before, like he is not correcting me, just guiding me closer. You stopped running, he adds, and something in my chest tightens at that. Not sharply, not painfully, just enough to make me notice, because that sounds like a version of me I do not recognize but somehow understand. And I take a slow breath, trying to process that, trying to picture it, but it feels distant, like looking at a reflection that does not quite match. That is not what this feels like, I admit, because right now I still feel uncertain, still feel like I am standing on unstable ground. And his gaze softens again, just slightly, like he expected that too, like none of this surprises him anymore. That is because you are starting over from the beginning, he says, and the words land gently but firmly, like something that does not need to be proven to be true. And I swallow, because that makes sense in a way I cannot argue with, even if I do not fully like it. And I let the silence stretch for a moment as I try to understand what that means, what it looks like to start over in a life I already lived, what it means to rebuild something I cannot remember breaking. And the thought feels overwhelming for just a second. But then something shifts, something small but important, because starting over also means choice. It means I am not trapped by what I do not remember. I am standing in a moment where I can decide what happens next. And that realization settles into me slowly, replacing some of the uncertainty with something steadier, something more grounded. So I look at him again. Really look this time. Not searching for answers, not trying to catch him in something. Just seeing him as he is, standing there, present, patient, waiting without pushing. And I realize something that makes my chest tighten in a completely different way. He is not asking me to remember. He is asking me to choose. And that feels bigger than anything else so far, because it means this is not about recovering the past. It is about deciding the future, and I do not know why that feels easier, but it does, just a little, just enough to make the next step possible. So I shift my weight forward, closing the distance again, not all the way, not enough to erase the space between us, but enough to acknowledge that I am no longer standing at the edge of it. And he does not move, does not interrupt, just watches me with that same quiet focus, like this moment matters just as much to him as it does to me. And I can feel it, the weight of the decision settling into place, not forced, not rushed, just present. And I inhale slowly, steadying myself one more time before I speak, because this is not something I want to say without meaning it, not something I want to rush through out of confusion. And when the words finally come, they are quieter than before, but clearer, more certain. Then I am not going to run, I say, and the moment the sentence leaves my mouth, I feel it settle, not like a promise I am unsure of, but like a choice I am making right now, in this moment. with everything. I have, and his reaction is small but unmistakable, a subtle shift in his posture, a breath released like he has been holding it longer than I realized. And something in his expression softens in a way that feels real, not guarded, not restrained, just honest. And that honesty reaches me in a way nothing else has so far, grounding me in the present instead of pulling me back into what I do not remember. And for the first time since I woke up, the space between us does not feel like a barrier. It feels like something I am ready to cross. Even if I do not know exactly what is waiting on the other side, the moment settles around us in a way that feels almost unreal, not because it is dramatic or overwhelming, but because it is quiet, steady, like something finally clicking into place after being just out of reach for too long. And I can feel it in the way I am standing now, not braced to pull away, not caught in that constant instinct to create distance, but here, present, aware of him, in a way that feels different from before, less like a question and more like something I am beginning to understand, even if I do not have all the pieces yet. And he sees it. I know he does, in the way his gaze softens, not cautiously this time, not like he is afraid it might disappear if he acknowledges it, but openly, like he is letting himself believe it just a little. And that shift does something to me, something I cannot ignore, because it feels like trust, not something forced or expected, but something given carefully, deliberately. And I realize that I am not just stepping toward him, I am stepping into that trust, and the weight of that thought should scare me. But it does not the way it did before. It feels steady instead, like something I can hold on to. So I take another step forward, closing the distance just enough that I can feel the difference in the space between us. The air no longer stretched thin but settled, grounded, and I stop there, not rushing it, not trying to force anything more than what feels right, because that is what this is now, not a rush to remember, not a demand for answers, but a choice, one I am making in real time. And I can see it in his reaction, the way his shoulders ease just slightly, the way his breath shifts like he has been holding it without realizing. And something in my chest responds to that, a quiet warmth that spreads without asking permission. And I do not pull away from it. I let it stay. I let it exist without trying to explain it. Because maybe I do not need to understand everything all at once. Maybe it is enough to recognize what is right in front of me. So I lift my hand slowly, not fully aware of the decision until I am already doing it, until my fingers hover in that same space as had been earlier, that careful distance he never crossed. And I pause there for a second, feeling the weight of it, the choice, the possibility, because this is different. This is me deciding, not reacting, not following something written or remembered, but choosing. And I glance up at him briefly, just enough to catch the way his eyes widen slightly, not in shock, but in something softer, something that feels like disbelief wrapped in hope. And that is enough to steady whatever hesitation might have remained. So I close the distance the rest of the way, letting my hand settle lightly against his, not gripping, not holding too tight, just enough to feel the contact, the warmth, the reality of it. And for a second, everything else fades, the confusion, the missing pieces, the questions I still do not have answers to, all of it, narrowing down to this one point of connection, this one moment where I am not defined by what I cannot remember, but by what I am choosing now. And I can feel it, the way his hand shifts slightly under mine, not pulling away, not tightening, just meeting me there, matching the same careful pressure, the same unspoken understanding. And something in my chest settles in response, like a piece finally finding where it belongs. And I realize then, slowly, quietly, that this is enough, not forever, not the full story, but enough for this moment, enough to move forward, enough to trust the version of myself who left those messages behind, who believed this was worth holding on to even when everything else fell away. And I exhale softly, the tension in my shoulders easing as I let that truth settle. And when I look at him again, really look, there is something different in my gaze, something steadier, something that no longer feels like searching, but like seeing. And I hold that for a second before speaking, my voice quiet but certain, not because I understand everything, but because I do not need to. Then we start here, I say, and the words feel right the moment they leave my mouth, not like a question, not like uncertainty, but like a decision. And I see it in the way his expression shifts, the way something in him finally relaxes, not completely, not all at once, but enough to make it real, enough to make it clear that this matters, that this is the beginning of something, not the end of what we had, but the start of what we will build again, piece by piece, choice by choice. And as I stand there, still holding his hand, I realize that maybe I do not need my memories to find my way back to him. Maybe all I need is this, the willingness to stay, to choose, to step forward instead of back. And that thought settles into me like something certain, something I can trust even without knowing everything. And for the first time since I opened my eyes, the future does not feel like something to fear. It feels like something I am ready to face.